Hello, this is Bill.
Good morning, Mrs. Lisa.
Hi, how are you? Good morning. I'm with
Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. Portia Camara should
You're breaking up.
just testing again.
Hi,
Yes.
hi, it's Shannon Thomas from Delaware County.
Good morning, Shannon. It's Bill
Hi,
Kaplan.
Bill.
Good
How
morning,
are you?
Shannon.
Hi.
Good morning, Shannon. It's Lisa Kennedy.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good morning. This is Laura Glenn.
Good morning. This is Bill Kaplan from Multicultural Community Family Services.
Can anyone hear us?
I can hear you.
It's Family Services.
Looks
Can
like there's
anyone hear me?
We're waiting for
Good morning.
good morning, Miss Portia. This is Bill.
Oh, hi, Bill. Good morning,
Hi, Portia.
Shannon.
Hi, how are you?
Well,
You know, I just noticed in the group chat there are two people who are having trouble with their audio.
I was
Yeah,
too, but I called
I'm
in.
wondering, is Kelsey on the line? She's right.
I just emailed Kelsey. This is Mark. I'm trying to figure out, let's see here. Figure out what's going on.
All right, thank you. We'll wait to hear from you.
Yeah. All right, let me see here. Just wait another minute for Kelsey, and if we can't, I will help lead things off as she's getting on. Let me see. All right, let me just check here. Kelsey just emailed everybody with, it looks like the CLC committee template and the PDF here, which is the PowerPoint. So let me see if I can switch this over to my phone. Let me just log in to Zoom here. I can share this for everybody.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kelsey. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Good
Okay.
morning.
Yes, good
Sorry.
morning.
Good morning. Yes, I can.
Good morning, Kelsey.
All right. Kelsey, do you want me to put the presentation up? Are you able to do that? Yep, there you are. Okay. All right, so as Kelsey's getting everything finalized and set up, this is Mark Durgan, the project director for the Pennsylvania Care Partnership. And I first and foremost wanted to welcome everybody on the call. And we'll kind of do a bit of a roll call, which I'm sure Kelsey will do in just a minute. But we're excited to be able to provide this opportunity for both some funding for this project, but ultimately I think what these kind of projects ultimately do is really build a stronger kind of collaboration amongst the groups that are working together and really kind of shooting for some similar goals, and also really establishes the idea of some learning circles and how everybody can kind of develop their CLC competency in some different and innovative ways. So with that, I think I can turn it over to Kelsey. I think she should be good to go now. Kelsey, you there? We're not hearing you if you're talking.
Okay, how about now?
Yep, you're good. I think you were on mute a second ago.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's weird. The computer mutes you, but I'm on my phone, and my phone doesn't say that I'm muted. So I think we're good now. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Okay, so for today, we're just calling the meeting to order. I'd love to go around and do some welcomes and introductions. For those that are on the line that maybe weren't on our first call in July when we sort of introduced the project, I'm just going to provide another overview. And then we're also going to talk about the process for forming a CLC committee, which is your first task as a part of the project. Have an opportunity for a bit of a round robin, some questions, and then we'll talk about next steps and our meeting schedule for the next portion of the project. So in terms of introductions, this is me. I'm Kelsey Leonard, for those that I haven't met on the line in person, and I'm the CLC coordinator for the Pennsylvania System of Care Partnership. So if we could go around, I know it might be a little difficult because we've got quite a few people on the line, but if we could have people just kind of introduce themselves and the county that they're coming from. I can start with who I see in the like registered on the webinar, and then if there's others who I'd miss, we can sort of go that way. So someone I see first is Larissa Kimmel.
Hi, Larissa Kimmel, System of Care Coordinator for Carbon, Monroe, and Pike counties.
Great, thank you. Next, I see Mrs. Kamara.
Good morning. I'm Portia Kamara, and I'm the Executive Director for the Multicultural Community Family Services. And our organization is going to be working with the Delaware County Office of Behavioral Health in the design, development, implementation of the CLC collaborative in Delaware County.
Fantastic. And then I see Shannon Thomas.
Hi, good morning. Shannon Thomas, Coordinator of Children's Mental Health and System of Care for Delaware County.
Thank you. And Lisa Kennedy.
Good morning. This is Lisa Kennedy from York County Systems of Care, and I'm the Family Care Support Specialist.
Thank you. And I see Bill Kaplan.
Good morning. Good morning. I work with Ms. Camara at Multicultural Community Family Services in Upper Darby, Delaware County. Thank you.
Thank you. And Maxine Williams.
Hi there, good morning. My name is Maxine Williams. I am the Quality Improvement Specialist for Columbia, Montour, Snyder, Union County Behavioral Health.
Great. And then Ms. Glenn.
Hi, Laura Glenn, Director of Program Planning and Development at Human Services Center in Lawrence County.
Fantastic. And I think there are a few others on the line that may not have had a chance to introduce yourselves. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Colleen Igo with York County System of Care.
Okay, that might be everyone. We might just have a few duplicate lines because of the call-ins. But if anyone didn't have a chance to introduce yourself, please feel free to do so now. We'll give you a few more seconds. Okay, that sounds about right. So thank you everyone for joining. We may have a few others that join throughout the course of the pilot project and or in particular some additional pilot participants that will join us on our next meeting. They may have just had a conflict for today. So just a brief overview, and just for many of you, I've worked with you over the years, and some of you are coming back to do the pilot in its third iteration, particularly York County, so much of this will be familiar to you, but we're just going to have a quick review for about 5 minutes and then really jump into the meat of our first phase. So when we think about culturally competent system of cares, we're acknowledging that culture is important to the work that we do, that we need to have assessments done. So we're really valuing data and evaluation and CQI, but thinking more in a cross-cultural lens. And how do we ensure that those assessments and the type of data that we're collecting are responsive to the communities that we're serving. We also are acknowledging that we need vigilance towards the varied and ever-changing dynamics of cultural differences in the communities that we work in and work for. We also are trying to expand our knowledge. We're trying to not only educate ourselves, but educate others on the diversity of cultures that may exist in the communities that we're serving. And then we really are focused on change and adaptation and shifting the status quo so that we really can meet the unique needs of the cultures that may currently exist in the communities that we're serving and or are emerging in the communities that we're serving. So this is just, and all these slides I sent to you as a PDF, you have a copy of them, but this is so in your work, you have kind of a baseline definition of cultural competence to be interacting with and to be sharing with others. Now, we're seeing evolutions in the language within CLC of whether or not cultural competence is sufficient. We now hear terms like cultural humility, cultural responsiveness, really saying that competence is the first step, but not the end of our journey. We're on a continuous journey where we need to also be working towards adaptation and responsiveness and actually, within systems of care, sustainable change. So these are just some working definitions, though. It helps for you to have a foundation to build from. And I think over the course of the pilot, you actually will be developing your own understandings of these definitions as adapted to your local community or communities. So as I mentioned, this is an ongoing practice. It's, we're trying to work towards understanding action and adaptation and how do we function in diverse environments. It's a commitment. So as we go through the process of the pilot project, it gives you a toolkit to enhance your already existing work, but it's not the end of your journey or the end of your CLC work. It's really about how do you lay a strong foundation for work that's going to exist as long as your system of care exists, as long as counties are serving people. And then lastly, we're also thinking about how CLC doesn't exist sort of on its own, but rather how do we integrate it across all of the work that our counties and collaborations are doing. So in much of these phases, as we go through the phases of the project, if you can think about how does this project or how does this activity integrate with what we are already doing, that's really important to sustainability, because if we do a lot of things that are identified as CLC, but they exist in isolation or they exist separate from the other types of services and programs that your county may have, the likelihood of sustainability or the likelihood that someone will carry on that work after you are gone or after the pilot is over decreases significantly if it's not. And then this is just so that you have the definition for linguistic competency. Again, this definition is ever evolving, and you should see it as a foundation, and hopefully that you're able to adapt based on this foundation to your local community what the true definition is in your context and in your specific community. So some pilot background. So where are we with the pilot with this kickoff? Right now, I think our count is that we are at 6 pilot learning communities. That might shift up or down a little bit. In the past, we've called them pilot counties, but right now we're calling it learning communities because we have counties, what we're calling counties, which means that we have some folks that are working from a provider perspective or working on behalf of a collaboration of counties, for instance, Carbon Monroe Pike. So we're really just calling you in terms of however you came as a coordinator to the project, we're calling you sort of the coordinator of a learning community around CLC. In addition, then, there are 3 phases to this project. Each phase is about heightening awareness, influencing attitudes, and motivating the development of knowledge and skills so that we integrate, not only incorporate, but integrate CLC across all of the county's system of care. And so the 3 phases are conducting an assessment, developing a plan based on the data collected from that assessment, and then implementing an action item from your CLC plan at the local level. Many of you have heard this before, but I'm just going into more detail for the phases in case anyone wasn't on that first introductory call. So for phase 1 with the CLC assessment, we are working on creating our CLC advisory committee or team. We are engaging directly with youth and families to understand county demographics. And then we're also trying to identify gaps and determine priorities. And that includes a briefing of our county leadership team or whatever your governance mechanism is for your learning community. So there has to be people who are the decision makers, and they should be actively involved in this process. And then the second portion of phase 1 is thinking about how you can educate and engage youth, family, and system partners with the work that you're doing. And a part of that is after the CLC committee is formed, is developing a mission statement that's been through a process of community engagement with youth, family, and system partners. Then we go into phase 2, and with your CLC committee and yourself or whoever you've identified as your coordinator, you're going to create a CLC plan. CLC plans, they help to identify action areas in 6 critical CLC domains. we would like to see an action item in each of the domains. You can have as many action items as you'd like across the domains. So really what that means is you'll have at least 6 action items on your CLC plan, 1 in each of the domains, but you can have, some plans have 60 action items. The important part to recognize is that this is a living document. So the idea is you're going to set benchmarks and goals, and when those goals are completed, you're going to update your plan and hopefully add in new goals or think about what the next level or step is in advancing what you set out in that initial goal. So it's okay if you only have 6 or if you have 60. They're living documents and they're just supposed to meet you where you're currently at in your CLC work. So lastly, what we then go through in phase 3 is we work to help you implement one of the action items that you've put onto your CLC plan. And so sometimes that might be providing linguistic services, sometimes it's a training, but in all of that, through the action item that you decide to implement, you want to identify who are the participating organizations, what are the roles of people for implementation, what are the just concrete action steps to getting you to the completion of that action item, what's the time frame, persons responsible, and additional benchmarks. And you can adapt that list too. You can definitely have more parameters that you identify that you think might be helpful or might be tailored uniquely to your local learning community. Like maybe you have to have council approval, or you have to talk to someone in a higher decision maker than other people. Maybe you have to apply for a certain budget approval. You can put sort of additional parameters in, but these are kind of the baseline ones that we say. Now this is where your mini grant comes in. If you're someone who was accepted into the project and then approved for a mini grant because you are not receiving system of care funds from any other grant aside from the PA Care partnership, so you're not receiving SAMHSA funds, I should be more specific, from any other grant aside from the PA Care partnership, then that's where you have eligibility for the mini grant funds. And the mini grant funds are what you can use to help you implement your action items. So that's a bit of the overview of the project. Now I just want to talk a little bit about our phase 1 assessment phase. So going more into depth, there are 3 aspects of the assessment process. So we want to be working on preparing a CLC assessment.
Hey, Kelsey.
Yes.
Kelsey, this is Mark. I wanted to just take a second with all of that information to see if there was any immediate kind of questions, thoughts, or comments from that kind of first beginning piece before we jump into the assessment. Is that okay?
Sure.
Hi, it's Shannon. I, of course, have a question. So, Kelsey, I thought when we received the mini grant, it stated that we would only be able to have technical assistance till February. Can you just explain our time frame for the mini grant? But, I have other system of care dollars that I'm now, after hearing all of these additional important areas, I'm going to have to shift some funding from one project over to this so that we can really make this our top priority for this second fiscal year. So the time frame would be helpful.
Yes, so we have a slide towards the end that talks about the time frame.
Okay.
We generally said I think the 6-month mark from when you were accepted to would have fallen around February, but from past experience, we generally are expecting probably that our meetings will probably go through June. And that is also kind of timely because we are may have an opportunity to present some of the findings from our pilot at the National Training Institutes that are also occurring in June, July. So that's sort of the 30,000-foot view of the timeline. But that's what today is to talk through. As a cohort, I'd like to hear your feedback on what you think is a reasonable timeline. We have a bit of flexibility with that on our end. Does that help?
It does. And what national conference in June? The System of Care conference?
It's the
Yeah.
The one,
Go ahead.
it's the one that goes into June and July is, I think that's the one I was thinking of is the,
Is that the one in Georgetown? Or, I mean, down in
Yeah,
National
it's
Harbor?
called
Orlando, yeah, the Technical Assistance Network training
Can you
conference.
repeat that? The what?
The one in
Technical-
Orlando,
Okay.
from the TA
thank you.
network, yeah. The old
Okay,
Georgetown
thanks.
conferences. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it's called the National Training Institute 2020 is, if you put that into Google, you'll come up with the conference page. So, any other questions? That was a great one. Okay, so we'll dive in. We're going to have, feel free to ask questions throughout, and we'll definitely have more dedicated time for just discussion, just kind of getting through the meat of the to-dos. So for the assessment phase, there are three aspects. The first part is establishing your CLC advisory committee or team. The purpose of this is that as coordinators, you can't do this work alone, and some of you have already begun this by reaching out to community partners or other staff, and so you're kind of sharing the role right now. There's a few people who are on the line from One Learning Community, so that's great. And now you'll just have to expand on that, and I'll talk a little bit about how to do that. The next part is to actually start to work with youth and families to think about county demographics or your local learning community demographics. So in our next phase 1 meeting, we will really look at how do you identify data, how do you collect data for an assessment, what are the different types of assessments that could qualify under this project. In short, they can be from really, really small surveys that you do just with your governance team or county leadership team or a few select staff, all the way up to, major assessments that are, county-wide or department-wide assessment, building audits. It really can be at whatever scale is most comfortable for you at your current stage in your CLC work. But we will have a full meeting just dedicated to thinking that through, answering questions, giving you tools, giving you some examples of what past counties who participated in the pilot have done. Lastly is then based on the assessment, thinking through what are some of the gaps that you've identified and how you can determine priorities based on those gaps or what the data is telling you, and providing a briefing to your county leadership team or to whoever your governance structure is, maybe even to staff and families. You could do a community open house or a community cafe on your findings or a focus group, something to share what you found from the assessment with others. And so those are kind of the three main components. But the first steps in starting phase 1 are to select your CLC committee, educate the committee and other staff about why you're taking on this initiative around CLC, and just ensuring that throughout the whole process, youth and families are a part of the work and that they are, equitable partners in the work, but then also being educated at the same time. Maybe they're not a part of the CLC committee, but your youth and family partners should still be aware of the advancements that you're making. So, in sort of anticipation of our next meeting for phase 1, where we're going to talk about some of the types of tools there are for assessments, this is a resource. So if you go to this link, the nccc.georgetown.edu/assessments, they have a lot of resources. This is the National Center for Cultural Competency at Georgetown University. They've developed so many resources over the years around how to conduct assessments. Those self-assessments that happen at the staff personnel level, but also organizational level self-assessments, looking at understanding where our current level of work is on CLC in our systems of care in our communities. So the information that you have on the right-hand side, these are all of the reports and tools that they've created. Not all of them, but the sort of more prominent ones that are available on the website. So a task for our next meeting is to kind of go through these tools, go through this web page, and really see what are the options in terms of assessments, and sort of come with any questions that you might have about how to implement. One of the questions I always get, and I'll save the answer for our next meeting, one of the questions I always get is, wow, these look, these are really massive types of assessments. Do I need to do all of the questions that are on their questionnaire? And so that was a great question, and we'll talk about, we talked about that in our meeting. And if you have the same question after reviewing these documents or reviewing these tools, those are the types of questions that we will address as a cohort on our next meeting around phase 1, where we really dive into the types of assessments you can do and hopefully get you to a place where you feel confident in designing and describing the type of assessment you're going to conduct. So some things that we are interested in understanding when it comes to our learning communities, the organizations that we may work for around CLC are, what's our philosophy towards CLC? Do we have a mission statement around CLC? We're going to be working really targeted on that particular item as a part of the pilot project. Although all of these things are areas that we're going to examine, but you will, a takeaway from the pilot is you're going to come out with a mission statement that's directed and tailored to your learning community. We also are concerned with policy, structures, procedures, practices, how diverse and knowledgeable the workforce is, whether there are dedicated resources and incentives for CLC, what types of community engagement and partnerships do we have? How are we publishing and disseminating information about how we are culturally responsive and able, and what types of materials do we have? Are they available in other languages? Are we tailoring to the linguistic diversity in our communities? And then if we have any type of advocacy that we're doing as an organization, are there some key areas where we're trying to move the needle on maybe disability rights or LGBTQ rights, or is there any type of advocacy that your learning community is undertaking or thinking about undertaking? And so one of the reasons I present this slide is I think it's a great way to think about an assessment, right? If these are the things that we are prioritizing as being evidence of culturally competent and linguistically competent organizations, well, then these are the things that we should be trying to assess, trying to collect data on, trying to think about, what are some questions we might ask of our staff, of our system partners, of our youth or family partners in each of these domains. So I thought now, you've heard me talk quite a bit, I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to enter into a round robin where you can tell us a little bit about where you currently are with your CLC work, what your proposed pilot project is, so the sort of area of work that you want to focus in on, and so this is sort of the portion that you described in your application. If you feel like you're able to share that with the group, that would be great. And then any sort of, your hopes or achievements for participating in the pilot. So if we could go around, I think I'll just kind of identify sort of the learning communities, and then we can go from there. And if people want to jump in or add other things, we can do that. So maybe York and Colleen and Lisa, if you guys want to start and talk about what brings you here.
Colleen, do you want to give a little overview about our group as a whole, and then I can talk about the current pilot? Colleen, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Lisa.
Kelsey, can you hear me? Okay. Maybe Colleen fell off. But I'll just say this much. This is our, I think, second or third round with the CLC project, and we've done a couple of things in the past that have been pretty fruitful in the ways of growth for York County as far as systems and partnerships are concerned. And our pilot this time is going to actually cover two different things. One is going to be, we've developed a leadership academy for parents and families to take parents through, going to be a 7-step program that we've developed. And this cohort of families that are going through the Leadership Academy have been through our Parent Network series that we offer that has actually a 10-month training process to it. So these family members have been cultured and groomed and have really been grabbing hold of the information that we're sharing and that are beginning to understand how to maneuver in systems and how to support their children, and are ready to move on to that next level and have an interest in really becoming more involved within our local community and beyond, and using their voice in an empowered manner to support their children and families and others. And so that series will be starting shortly. And then the second component that we are offering through this current pilot is going to be called a training for family perspectives for staff. And this is a training that is specifically designed for provider staff that are working directly with families to really share and talk about what the experience of this journey for families really is, so that as a staff person, they can better understand when they are interacting with families, what are some of the expectations, and understanding the impact of the family experience and the trauma that families are enduring, and how they, as staff, can be a true support, and then really truly understand what is true family engagement. And so those are the two pieces that we are going to be working with through this pilot, and we're excited to really get started with that, with both of them. Are there any questions about either one?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions for York or interest piqued? Okay, well, if you do, keep them in mind. We'll have some opportunity for some more discussion too after everyone goes around. So maybe Delaware, do you want to share what you have proposed?
Hi, yes, this is Shannon. Yes, we're partnering with our friends at Multicultural Community Family Services. Bill and Portia are on the phone, and they're going to take the lead for this project here. It's going to look a little bit different because Delaware County is very unique. Right here in Delaware County, where Portia, Bill, and I are located business-wise, we have over, I think, Portia and Bill, probably about 120 different languages spoken just in this township alone. So it's a very timely project for us, and we're really thrilled that we received the grant as well as the System of Care grant, because we are going to be starting like Portia mentioned, the Delaware County CLC Collaborative, and following in the footsteps of the phases that you just mentioned, Kelsey, developing an oversight committee that's going to start working on implementing the phases, as well as, hopefully providing a level of the training here in the county for our agencies and schools and anybody else that wants to participate, to be able to help them establish their own CLC plans. I think that's the goal for the first year, is just to start addressing the need there, and then having the oversight committee work on some larger issues moving forward. And I'm hoping to be able to integrate this into our Human Services block grant so that it's sustained for the long term, so that, these topics and this plan can continue to move forward for the long term. Portia or Bill, you want to add anything?
Hi, Shannon. I think you said a lot, that it is where we are, and as you stated, we are excited about beginning this process, and it is wonderful to know that there will be the additional opportunity for conference calls such as this, as stated by CLC, to continue to support us move this work forward. Bill, you can come in.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch on, and we're at the very beginning, and we're just having this discussion. But I like what York was saying about the Leadership Academy for Parents and then their second phase. And I think what we've been focusing on at Multicultural and what we have been doing because of what Shannon was saying, you know, we've been addressing cultural and racial and ethnic diversity just because of our makeup of our township and the county for many years now. And one of the areas that we're looking at is really working with these agencies, like Shannon said, in the schools, because there are some serious, to be quite honest, right, barriers to getting agencies to be culturally responsive in every aspect of their program planning, program delivery, even the organizational structure. So I think one of the areas that we're going to be looking at is how do we really look at all the intercultural interactions that take place within these organizations, that they themselves can be barriers to entry into programs and access into programs. So I think one of the areas we're going to be looking at, and again, it's just the beginning and we're still playing around with this, but how do we make access equitable to programs and services for all cultural and racial and ethnically diverse groups? And that would require working intimately with organizations to look at not only their structures, but every aspect of their program planning. And this is where I'm really excited about having families and youth actually get trained, educated to work with agencies, or at least help develop the training and the programs that the staff is going to learn to look at their own agencies. And I think that's a little bit what Shannon was talking about integrating what we're going to be doing into existing programs. So a lot of it is looking at the structure of these agencies and making them much more culturally. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. That was really fantastic. And I hope this type of discussion and sort of the ability to have this exchange and the collaboration and sort of the feeding off of each other's ideas and projects is exactly why we have these meetings, and we'll continue to have them throughout the project so that you can learn from each other, both your successes and your challenges. So next up, Lawrence County.
Hi, this is Laura Glenn. Human Services Center is the base service, operates as the base service unit, and we've had a recent influx of Latino families from Puerto Rico. So we've started to we quickly identified, along with some of the school systems, that there were not things in place to make sure, such as language services. So we got ProPio so that we could kind of start making sure that there were no barriers with language, and have started some trainings. I'm completely new to this whole process, so I'm kind of just learning as I go, working with Dee Welker, who is more familiar with the projects. I'm hoping to work with her and see what other opportunities we can explore.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And how about Carbon Monroe Pike? Carbon Monroe Pike, did we lose you? Okay. How about Maxine Williams? Are you on?
Yes.
Kelsey, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Is that Larissa? Okay. So sorry.
Yeah.
We'll go back to Monroe Pike, and then we'll go to you, Maxine, after.
All right. Thank you. So we are new to the CLC project. Our counties have wholeheartedly committed that cultural linguistic competency is something that we have not been real successful in the past. So what we would like to really do is start to look to identify some underrepresented cultures, help us become educated and work to engage, as well as provide some kind of community education, as well as county agency education as well.
Fantastic. Well, we are happy to have you and excited to see how your project grows. Maxine.
Yes, so currently we are working on really enhancing the trauma competency of our staff, as well as their competencies in dealing with individuals of the LGBTQ population. But other than that, there hasn't really been a super clear focus on CLC issues. So I'm most excited for the assessment piece to find out where the need truly lies that represents the population that we serve. You know, we're a pretty rural area with quite a bit of diversity. So I think there are a lot of needs out there that just kind of aren't talked about that I'd really like to begin to hone in on.
Thank you. Fantastic. Well, we're excited to see again how your project grows too, and how we all can help each other. I think that's the other great thing that I've seen over the years with the cohorts of the pilot is we sometimes find tools that, you know, are somehow emerging in our local community, but then you hear about them or another part of the state hears about them, and we're able to also use them. So I think this will be great in terms of if you're someone who's still trying to identify, you know, what will work or what's available out there in terms of resources. This is, you know, our opportunity to share and learn from one another. I think then we may have gotten through almost everyone, but I think we also had Philadelphia join. So I would say, Sarang, if you want to share what you're proposing for Philly, that would be great.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm multitasked while listening and participating. We have we have a few initiatives coming up that will really work to improve and enhance our diversity and inclusion and pertaining to language and cultural competency. Here we are right now. I'm working with my senior director who just got promoted to really oversee all the work around diversity and inclusion in language and competency. And then really looking at how we can align with you, from the state, and to see what best practices out there that you all have, and how we can be strategic about making sure that the work that we do is really have a greater impact. So that's what I have to say, and we'll really look through. I actually just made a note to talk with my senior director of this presentation and to really come back with what strategy we need to go and what we need to do. There's some of the stuff that we already been doing, and that's how we can also align with what you are doing. So, yeah.
Great. Well, fantastic. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
So I think those are all of our learning communities. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Well, just recognizing our time, I'm going to move on. And so your first task as a pilot is for phase 1, is to create a CLC committee. And the first step in doing that, some of you may already have some type of CLC committee or advisory committee. If you do, then maybe it's doing a reflection on the membership of that committee. Could it be enhanced in any way to be more reflective of the communities that you're serving? If you don't have one and you're starting from the ground up, the first step is to recruit and maintain a representative body of youth, family, and cultural system partner representatives to serve on as members of your CLC committee or subcommittee, or the title that you call this is really up to you, and I encourage you to to be creative with however you'd like to call it. Even in what I mentioned earlier around the advancing language of, cultural and linguistic competency now moving towards responsiveness or humility, you can call it whatever you'd like, so long as, we still have the same aims and goals. So if you want to go through a renaming process, that's totally fine. So as a part of your recruitment, some of the things you might want to do, you could host an open house, you could host a webinar, like a virtual meeting for folks to join. You could have some type of family youth activity. Maybe you host like bowling for CLC or some type of awareness event. Maybe you, because we're coming up to the holidays, maybe you want to talk about being inclusive during the holidays and use that as an opportunity to recruit people to serve on the committee. Flyers are a really great tool to recruit people. So sending in an email with a flyer and sort of sending that out to your listserv can be really great. Also, maybe creating a targeted email listserv that looks at what are some of the cultural organizations in your community, who are some of the maybe that could be labor unions, it could be churches, it could be cultural organizations like, there's an African American Center or Hispanic Heritage Center, any of these types of orgs, making a listserv or a communication plan, and then engaging them as potential members of the CLC committee. You might even have orgs that are specifically for children's health, children's mental health, youth mental and behavioral health out there that are also operating at the intersection of race and ethnicity or SOGI, so sexual orientation, gender identity. So you might have an LGBTQ mental health org in your local community that would be great to reach out to. You also, in your recruitment, want to tell people why they should be a part of it. What is their benefit to participation? Not just what they can give back to the community or give of themselves, but what are we actually giving to them as well? And that can be the development of skills, development of professional experience. Sometimes that helps with people being able to then become more employable in their own lives. So thinking through what are the benefits that you're trying to build in for your committee members. Once you think through your recruitment strategy and hopefully start recruiting, then I would like for you to complete the worksheet. And the worksheet is something that I'd like completed for our next meeting, which we're going to talk about in terms of schedule. I emailed that worksheet to you, so you all should have a Word document copy of it. Really, it just kind of shows what's on this slide, but then it kind of gives you some targeted identifiers for members. Now, you do not have to recruit for all of those identifiers. You do not have to recruit for any of those identifiers. The purpose is that I want you to be purposeful in who you're identifying as needed membership for your committee. So if you know that you aren't serving anyone in your community that is African American, or you don't really have a large African American population, but you have a very large, sort of 99% rural white community, okay, well, what is the diversity of culture in that? It's not just that they're rural and white. You probably have farmers, you probably have coal miners, you probably have all these different types of economic backgrounds that are also culturally informed. You might have veteran staff that also is culturally informed. So you might want to recruit someone who works for the local VA or a Lions Club or a Rotary. And then for those that, do have a lot of racial, ethnic, linguistic diversity, think about how do you have that representation on your committee. So the worksheet can be adapted. That's why I gave it to you as a Word document. You can adapt it to fit what is culturally relevant and appropriate for the communities that you're working in. And then the last portion to this task is to convene your first meeting. Now, your committee is a living committee. The people that you recruit initially are not going to be the people who stay with it forever. They may be, but most likely probably won't. And you can keep building your committee. There can still be more members, or it's really the membership style is however you decide it to be. Maybe it's an annual term or a 2-year term, and then you recruit new members, you bring on new people, old people, and they sort of trickle off. But you have to convene your first meeting. And even if that first meeting is only 3 people because you're still building, that's okay. But you have to sort of recruit, complete the worksheet, and then have your first meeting as our first task for phase 1. That's important because convening of the first meeting is really integral to that, having the people who you need to give you feedback on the assessment, the types of questions you're going to ask, the type of assessment you decide you want to do. So all of that being said, this is just so you can see, that shouldn't say meeting 21, that should say meeting 1, so apologies for that. But you can see this for the first phase 1. In each phase, there are going to be 3 meetings. Phase 3, we will have potentially 4 meetings. So for this first meeting, it was our introductions and overview and orientation. And then here are your assignments. These are the assignments that I'm hoping you will have completed by December 1st of this year. Now, with that being said, what I would like for you to do is have your recruitment and complete your worksheet and send your worksheets to me by December 1st. If you have your first convening of your first meeting by then too, that's fantastic. But if you need more time, that's okay too. It would just sort of be between meeting 2 and meeting 3 of phase 1. We'd really like for you to have that first meeting, if not sooner. So you can see here kind of what we're going to be doing in terms of objectives and assignments for the remainder of phase 1. I haven't given you all of the phases because I feel like that might just be a little overwhelming at this point, and we adapt it to you as a cohort. So if you need more time on things, if you are going really speedily through one phase and not, just make those adjustments. But in terms of, so you can just kind of see where the other assignments will be, the next big assignment is completing your mission statement for your CLC committee and determining the type of assessment that you're going to conduct. And then after meeting 3, it's to carry out your assessment project and then complete the assessment. And so we'll set dates by when those things should be completed at the conclusion of each of our meetings. So this is about timeline, and Sharon, you asked about this earlier. My proposal is that we have our next meeting on Thursday, December 12th at 9 a.m. And so by December 1st, you will have completed your sort of worksheet and recruitment of CLC members. Now, completed in the sense of made your first attempt. Recruitment is going to be an ongoing process throughout this project, but at least you will have sort of made your first attempt and be able to talk about your successes and or challenges related to forming your CLC committee on the December 12th call. So for people on the line, does December 12th, that's a Thursday at 9 a.m., does that work for folks?
Kelsey, this is Shannon. We work a little bit differently here in Delaware County, so we have to contract with Portia's agency, and that might take a couple weeks. So we'll put it down as December 12th, but right now they're like working through our honor code here in the county right now. They're not being paid for being on this call, so Delaware County is going to be a little bit behind until we can get the contract in place, which should be done soon. So I'm just letting you know right now that we're not going to likely be able to meet some of your time frames.
And thank you for the advance notice. So that's okay. I mean, we'll adapt, and you just might be adding things in the other meetings, which is totally fine as well. Or we might be adding an additional meeting. I mean, we set goals, and sometimes you might not be the one that's struggling with meetings. So but we're just going to try, because I don't know on the ground how if a month and 10 days or a month and a week, if that's going to be enough time for your recruitment. But when we come back for our next meeting, hopefully, you'll have either successes or challenges, and then we'll learn and grow from there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, but generally, does that date time work for others, or I just don't know if I'm picking a bad time?
Laura Glenn from Lawrence County, that works for me.
Thank you.
Maxine, that works for me also.
Great.
And this is Lisa. That works for me as well.
Okay, well, I'm not hearing any objections to that, so that will be our time. I'll send you a meeting invite like I did today with a Zoom invitation. Meeting materials for that one will go out much more in advance because we'll be particularly on that one talking about the assessment tools that we'll have reviewed on the National Cultural Competency site, and really talking through your options for assessments, types of online survey tools that may be available to you or that you might have to purchase a subscription to. We can think through that. And one of the things, there's a few other things I want to say to you before we leave, but just in terms of the time frame, you can see here that we have the additional phase meetings. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So like we said, there's about 10 meetings in total for the pilot. 9 additional meetings if we include the one on December 12th. But the timing of those, you as a cohort get to determine that. So if we meet on December 12th and you're saying we need more meetings around phase 1, or we need more meetings, or we just need more time and spacing in between meetings to achieve the objective assignments, you guys determine that, and we adapt to you as a state technical assistance team. Does that make sense? Okay, sounds like it. So I just had a logistical question. Does anyone have issues accessing Google or Google Drive in particular from your office computers?
This is Shannon. I don't use that, so it's
okay.
We can't do that. So anything you're going to send Delaware County, you're going to have to send in a working document. The Google Doc is very difficult for us, and even those drive shares that Mark offered, we can't do it.
So yeah, like I was gonna say the Dropbox and stuff like that.
No, it's not compatible here, unfortunately.
So I'm wondering, the only thing we might explore is if it's something that you have to log into our PA Care website and the files are there for download. Would that be helpful?
Well, I don't know that we have that feature on the website right now. So let me think here.
How about others? I know I don't mind sending it individually, Shannon, but for others, does a shared drive of some sort, whether it's Google or Dropbox or OneDrive, is that appealing to anyone, or would you just rather have everything in your inbox?
CMSU computers are incapable of accessing shared drives, so I would need them emailed or able to be downloaded in some kind of way.
Okay. So it sounds like the preference then. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say I can do either one, whichever is easier. So if most need to do it through email, that's fine too.
Yeah,
so it sounds like email. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, in multicultural, we could do OneDrive or Google Drive. So we're pretty flexible.
Okay, great.
Or email. We will go with what works best for everyone.
Okay, great. All right, so for now, you'll be getting most things via email, just as I did today. If we add something in, like if I do create a Google Drive just for my own organizational purposes, I'm happy to add people, and then you can access it at your will, but we'll still, the primary form of communication will be email. So I did want to leave some opportunity for additional questions or concerns as we sort of move forward from today. Just some announcements too before we move into that Q&A. We have a community of practice at the state level for CLC. It meets like every other month or so. And so if you would like to participate in that community of practice, I'll add you as an invite. but it's not mandatory. It's just another opportunity for you to learn about what's going on CLC-wise across the state. I just wanted to flag that if you get an invitation. Our first meeting, not our first meeting, but our next meeting is November 13th. So that's just a flag for you.
Can I have a question about that CLC
yes.
practice? Yeah. So is that the place where we can get all the things that everyone has learned in the first two phases? Like, is there a document that says this worked well or this didn't work, and what people have tried and the lessons learned?
Yes, so we have a final report from the past two pilots that I will send to everyone. I wanted to make sure that I had your preferences for communication before I bombarded you with content.
Okay.
But I will, as pilot members, I'll send that to you. The community of practices, though, they're more about talking about emerging issues around CLC for the state.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions about the pilot and what you've heard today, or things that you're curious about related to your first assignment?
I have another general question about communication.
Yes.
Is there a way we could talk with, or is there kind of like a group chat that we can talk with York or Carbon, Monroe, like all the other cohorts? And are we in a cohort kind of with these other counties?
Yes, so you would be, so everyone who's on the line today for the 6 learning communities, you are in the cohort of Pilot 3.0. York is a part of, they've been involved since the beginning, so they're a part of Pilot 1 and Pilot 2 cohorts. So we don't have any group chat function that I'm aware of that connects everyone. The only thing I could think of is maybe adding past and present pilot participants to like a chain email that you would all have each other's emails, but that's the only thing I can think of right now.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, because I was just there's some options, but there is that thought on how you do it. So you can do like closed Facebook groups and that kind of thing, but then you're involving some of your personal stuff with your work stuff. That's something that we can investigate. But I think the one challenge that we ultimately have, this is Mark, I work at a state desk and I work for UPMC. So I actually have 2 barriers for a lot of this stuff. So I think it's an opportunity to look at to see what kind of things could be done for that. And would love suggestions if anybody knows of anything that has worked well with other groups as well.
This is Portia. Can we get the names of the counties that are a part of the Pilot 3 cohort?
Yes, I can say that now. I can just reiterate that now. So, and I will email it to everyone, but we have Lawrence County, Carbon, Monroe, and Pike counties, Delaware County, Philadelphia County, York County, and Maxine, can you restate the 3, I think it's 2 or 3 counties that you're working with on behalf of CMSU?
So our Tier 1 counties are Snyder and Union.
Okay, thank you. Snyder and Union.
Yep.
Thank you.
So technically, we've got about 9 counties in total that are participating in some fashion, but 6 learning communities is what we're calling them. Okay, well, one of the things before we sign off for today, and I apologize for going a little bit over our time, technical difficulties didn't help with that, is just that when we come for our next meeting, we will talk about your recruitment efforts for your cultural and linguistic competency committees. And then we're also going to talk about designing your assessments and what your assessment projects should look like. One of the unique opportunities that we have is, if you are familiar with the YFTI evaluation team for the PA Care Partnership dashboard, we have a unique opportunity to potentially create some CLC dashboards. So in the construction of our assessments or the assessments that you're thinking of, if it's something that you want to invest in on an annual basis, or something that you'd like to see be able to be visualized in a dashboard, if you could think creatively about that and bring any questions or ideas to our next meeting, that would be much appreciated. I probably will send you some additional information on that and maybe even a little survey for you to fill out in advance of our next meeting around that topic. But I just wanted to let you know about it so that when you do receive that communication, you understand sort of the root of the foundation of the query. And it's this idea that maybe in a year and a half, we might actually be able to visualize some CLC dashboards for your counties through that functionality. Okay, well, that's everything we have for today. Thank you so much for joining our Phase 1 meeting, meeting 1 of Phase 1. I will stay on the line for a few extra minutes if there's anyone that has additional questions or has a one-on-one query. But thank you again, and if you have any questions outside of today's call, please feel free to email me at any time. I'm also happy to set up one-on-one conference calls with each of you to talk about your recruitment efforts, your CLC committee recruitment plans, and anything that you have in terms of pilot project questions as you're moving forward through to our December 12th meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm sorry, I did have a question. Kelsey, are you still there?
I am still here.
Hi, this is Bill. I forgot to ask this. Is there any collection of, and I use the word curriculum, but I don't mean scripts or anything, but curriculum that any of the trainings people have used, or like how is that material shared? Or is that developed within each CLC in the last 2 rounds?
Yes, it is developed within each pilot county or pilot learning community. We do have some resources that we've developed like through our webinar series and through the pilots that we've posted onto our PA Care Partnership website. Under resources, there's a tab specifically dedicated to CLC where you can find some additional documents and files related to the work we've done in the past like 4 or so years.
And that was on the website, partnership website?
Yes, the PA SOC
PA Care Partnership.
PA Care Partnership, sorry.
Yeah, PA Care Partnership. Yep, we changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, you were
Mark,
saying.
I'm not able to log out of it right now, but are you able to just enter into the chat box the PA Care Partnership CLC link? And then Bob, you'd have that link.
Yep, I'll put it in there right now. Copy and
I'm sorry, I called you Bob. It's Bill. I will get that. I'm horrible with names.
No problem. No problem.
And Control V. There you go.
Great. Yep, got it.
Yep, and then actually, just I'll put a plug out there. That's actually our resources tab. So actually, if you go back one level, we have a bunch of information, even if you're looking for additional information on system of care or other things that we do under resources, and then even in the trainings as well. So
great. Yep. Okay. Yep. I see it now.
And then also on the link that I provided for the assessments, the NCCC link to Georgetown, they have additional curriculum around cultural competency throughout that website. I just directed everyone to the first portion on assessments. But if you need additional background, you can just a good exploration of that website is a great place to start.
Okay. Yep. And yeah, I'll take a look at that one, and that would be really helpful. Thank you.
And then on the last slide of the PowerPoint I just flipped to, I included some references. They're not full references, but they have the meat of what you need. Those are some great resources that you can Google. And some of them are free books that you can order and get a hard copy of or get an electronic copy of. And then if you type in cultural and linguistic competency into Google Scholar, you can get some of the more current sources on the topic.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure whatever we have, because we have a pretty good library at Multicultural. I just want to make sure it lines up with what you are, putting together in the CLC projects. Because there's a lot of stuff out there, and I'll say it ranges. Some of it is pretty light, and some of it's really good. So that's why I just wanted to look at resources.
Yeah. The next one we'll talk about too during the next meeting that we have the assessment aligned with is the national class standards. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at those, even if you haven't and we don't do it until the next meeting, that's okay. Like that's why we sort of walk you through everything. But if you are looking for additional readings in advance of that next meeting, the National Class Standards, CLAS, Culturally and Linguistically Appropriate Services.
Yeah.
Those are what at the county and state level, when we work through SAMHSA grants, we have to align our work with those standards.
That's the CLAS standards.
Correct.
Great. Yeah, that was actually, and I was going to wait till the next meeting. If we do the assessment, but then if our work after that doesn't align with the assessment, assessments need a tool to carry it out. I mean, probably more than I do. But it sounds like those are the standards that would follow the assessments that would align.
Yes.
Yeah, that would help. Yeah, okay.
In addition to the slide I showed earlier on, like what are we looking for to be, so in terms of philosophy, mission statement, policy structures, like all of these things fall under the national class standards in various ways.
Great. Okay. That's helpful. And then this slide here would be what we're going to work towards as the guiding elements for the committee, for the group that we're Yeah.
So it's like you're recruiting and you're saying, what are you going to do as a committee? Well, we're going to develop a CLC mission statement that applies to our whole community. We're going to be working on changing policies and procedures and practices so they're more culturally responsive. We're going to be doing things that are around engagement and how do we get the community more involved in mental and behavioral health for youth and families.
Great. And all of those action steps, like with the two that you just mentioned, that will be on that other phase. If we could just get that kind of blueprint and guideline, action plan, I think is the way you put it.
Yes, the CLC plan. So when we get to the end of phase 1, after you have your assessment data, what we then give you is a CLC plan template.
Okay,
and it's a template that was created by Georgetown, and it's very, very in-depth, maybe a little bit too much for some people who are just starting, but you adapt it to what you need. And so that's where I mentioned to you about the 6 domains.
Yes.
Here. The template that I give you is divided in those 6 domains, and it gives you examples of action items under each of those domains. Some people take those action items verbatim, and some people add new things or adapt them to their community.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that really helps that there's a template for that. Great. Yeah. Yeah, we're already looking ahead. There's been some really good work in Delaware County, but it hasn't been systemic and it hasn't been coordinated. And so that's
you're just missing structure. You're trying to bring it all together.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you talk about templates and alignment of the assessment with the actual work, like that really rings true for us here. So I think really that could be our springboard to take this like county-wide and, to really do a depth scope kind of a approach rather than region or, like local and community based. So we're kind of excited about that.
Well, we're excited to have you be participating, and what I'll do is I will send to the whole cohort the final reports, the CLC plan template, and the national class standards. I don't mind sending them a little bit early. I'll send them again as we sort of move through each of the phases, but it sounds like it might be helpful to sort of have the bird's eye view right now and then get into the weeds later.
Yes, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Thanks for taking this extra couple minutes. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. And if anything comes up in the interim before December 12th, feel free to let me know. We can always schedule a call.
Oh, great. I will talk with Ms. Camara about that. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Oh, thanks. Bye.
Is there anyone else on the line that had a question? Otherwise, we're going to sign off.
Hey, Kelsey, this is one more thought. We might want to just send the group the link to even sign up to get the email blast from the TA network, because they always have some good CLC stuff on there. And
That's
not
a great
everybody
point.
might know about that. So,
Fantastic. And okay. I think we should, I don't mind posting these onto the website, the recording.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think we should do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, just let me know. It's, we can kind of catch up to figure out any updated information that we want to get on that, on the pilot project page. Links, pieces, just key information that we want to share.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to be a closed drive. So if we can, post the documents and files, everything up there, I don't mind doing that. So I think we might want to take some time to just curate that, or I will take the time to curate that and then send everything your way.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, well, thanks so much for your added support and technical assistance on this morning's call, and we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds great. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.